Why there's never been a Nirvana biopic explained. Nirvana is one of the most important bands of the turn of the 20th century, not only because of the mythology of its band members, but because of their influence on rock, grunge, and music in general afterward. And yet, there's never been a true biopic about the band. Music biopics are the coin of the Hollywood realm, and every time one is released, it always seems to be a hit, critically and financially. Unsurprisingly, filling a movie with hit songs sung by superstars is an easy recipe for success. When exactly to release a music biopic can be a tricky proposition, though. Bands and singers deserving of a biopic are often still alive and even performing, making the creative process that much more challenging. For a band like Nirvana, who is synonymous with 90s rock and the grunge movement, there will always be several hoops to jump through, from Courtney Love's entanglement to David Grohl's busy schedule to all the normal struggles a biopic has with production. There's never been a true Nirvana biopic, and it's a bit understandable why. A workable Nirvana biopic would require Courtney Love's and the band's approval. A Nirvana biopic would need approval from the two living members of the band, Dave Grohl and Chris Novoselic, and maybe Chad Channing if the entire story is to be told, and Courtney Love, Kurt Cobain's widowed wife and the mother of his child, who is also the executor of his estate, for now, via trust counsel. While a biopic does not need the subject's approval to be made, if a movie wants to use the music and have access to parts of the story only the band would know, filmmakers need to play ball. This is particularly difficult for Nirvana, considering the long and complicated relationship between Dave Grohl and Courtney Love via Far Out magazine. A Nirvana biopic would need to go to some dark places, considering how important Kurt Cobain's mental health struggles and death are to the band's legacy, and it's unlikely the band, Love, and her daughter Frances Bean Cobain would all agree on the exact way to depict his death. For a Nirvana biopic, where all the parties have different ideas about how the movie should go, it could prove a difficult and long production with no guarantee of it ever being completed. Bohemian Rhapsody was highly mythologized, and that was with Queen all being on the same page. For a Nirvana biopic, where all the parties have different ideas about how the movie should go, it could prove a difficult and long production with no guarantee of it ever being completed. Brad Pitt unsuccessfully pitched a Nirvana biopic to Courtney Love. Just because there hasn't been a Nirvana biopic doesn't mean the idea hasn't been formulating in Hollywood for years. Brad Pitt, whose producing credits have only expanded since Nirvana was selling out shows, has allegedly approached Courtney Love twice about making a biopic and was both times rejected. According to Love, Pitt approached her about doing a Nirvana biopic shortly before production for Fight Club began via Variety. When Love rejected the idea, Love claimed she was fired from the film and replaced with Helena Bonham Carter. Brad Pitt stars in Fight Club alongside Edward Norton, who was dating Love in 1999 when the film was released. However, a source close to the film confirmed to Variety that while Love did audition for the role of Marla Singer, she was never offered the part. You cannot be fired for a job you didn't get. It's common knowledge that roles are not decided by other actors but by the director. Love went on to claim that Pitt approached her again in 2020, but that she felt ignored during their meeting, and therefore, she rejected the idea. With Love as the gatekeeper for a Nirvana biopic, even that first step for approval is a tricky barrier for entry of anyone looking to tell the Nirvana story. Gus Van Sant's Last Days was not a true Nirvana biopic. While there's never been a Nirvana biopic, Gus Van Sant's Last Days gets close to it. The film is a fictionalized retelling of the last days of a musician's life, clearly based on Kurt Cobain, though named Blake Michael Pitt in the film. While it's never directly stated that Kurt Cobain is the inspiration for Blake, the parallels are obvious via Laymack. Though even if it was officially based on Cobain, Last Days would not serve as a good Nirvana biopic, considering it only shows the last few days of the singer's life. Injections of religious imagery and psychedelic scenes also border on tacky at times. In terms of quality as a movie just on its own merits, Last Days is still somewhat lacking. Vincent's experimental style is an effective way to get inside the head of a massive rock star who is slowly collapsing in on himself, but it can make the thrust of the story difficult to understand. Injections of religious imagery and psychedelic scenes also border on tacky at times.